The quiet beginning. From the moment Sundar Pichai stepped on stage, the crowd felt a quiet calm. The lights dimmed and the air buzzed with anticipation. Many came to hear about the future of technology, but nobody expected the story about his daughter that was about to unfold. A story filled with hope, challenges, and the power of kindness. Sundar's life was never easy. Born in a small town in India, he grew up in a modest home, surrounded by books and dreams. His parents worked hard but had little to give besides love and lessons on respect and humility. Sundar learned early that success was not just about money or power, but about staying true to yourself, no matter how hard the journey. The story of his daughter started in a quiet corner of their home, far from the bright lights of Silicon Valley. She was curious, kind, and determined. But more than that, she carried a spirit much like her father's, quiet strength that could move mountains if given the chance. But life was not going to be easy for her. She faced doubts both from outside and inside herself. She wondered if she could live up to her father's name, or if people only saw her as Sundar's daughter, rather than her own person. The weight of expectation was heavy, and sometimes it felt like she was walking a path filled with shadows. Yet in those shadows, she found light. A chance to show the world that kindness and respect could open doors that even power could not. She found moments of joy in small acts, helping, a stranger listening when no one else would, standing up quietly for what was right. These were the true signs of strength her father had taught her. One day, everything changed. A chance came for her to step out of the shadows and into the spotlight. It was unexpected. A sudden opportunity to speak to a crowd, to share her own story, to show that she was more than a name. But doubts crept in. Could she face the crowd? Would they listen? Or would she be just another voice lost in noise? As she prepared to face the world, a storm brewed behind the scenes, challenges that threatened to break her spirit. A surprise twist that no one could see coming. And in that moment, her resilience would be tested like never before. The crowd waited. The stage was set. And soon her story would change everything they thought they knew about the daughter of Sundar Pichai. The weight of the name, the morning sun poured gently through the curtains of a quiet home in California, casting soft light on the small breakfast table where she sat alone, staring at her untouched cup of tea. Her hands trembled just slightly, not from cold but from the storm raging quietly inside her heart. She was used to the weight of the name she carried. To the world, she was Sundar Pichai's daughter, a title heavy with expectation, a shadow she could never fully escape. But today felt different. Today, that weight pressed down harder than ever before. Since childhood, she had watched her father navigate life with a calm that seemed almost otherworldly. He never let the world's noise distract him from what mattered: kindness, respect, and quiet strength. Yet for her, those lessons sometimes felt like a double-edged sword. To be humble was a virtue, but it was also a challenge when everyone around expected brilliance simply because of who her father was. In school, she was often overlooked, or worse, judged before people knew her. Some thought she had it easy, while others assumed she was just riding on her father's success. Neither was true. Deep down, she craved something more than just living in the shadow. She wanted to be seen for who she was, not the daughter of a CEO, but a young woman with her own dreams, struggles, and victories. This inner battle shaped her days. She would stay up late writing in her journal, trying to find words for feelings that were too heavy to say out loud. Sometimes tears blurred her vision, not because she felt weak, but because the world demanded strength without pause. On this particular morning, a message arrived that would change everything. Her phone buzzed softly with a note from a close family friend, someone who had worked alongside her father for years. It said simply, "There's a chance for you to speak at the upcoming tech conference. A surprise appearance. People want to hear your voice." Her heart skipped, a mix of excitement and fear flooding her senses. She had never spoken publicly before, especially not on a stage that would be watched by millions around the world. The idea terrified her. What if she stumbled? What if the audience only saw her as Sundar Pichai's daughter and not herself? What if she wasn't ready? Doubts swarmed her mind like a relentless storm. But then, beneath the fear, a small flame of determination flickered. Maybe this was her moment, not to prove to others, but to prove to herself that she could be brave in the face of uncertainty. That day she walked outside, feeling the cool breeze brush against her face. She watched a mother patiently guide her child across the street, the child's small hand gripping tightly with trust. She saw an old man helping a stray dog find shelter. Simple acts of kindness, small threads of humanity that connected everyone. And in those moments, she found a quiet strength. She realized that her story was not just about the pressure of a famous name. It was about the courage to be kind, to stand tall even when the world was watching, and to find beauty in humility. As the conference day neared, the whispers grew louder. Reporters speculated. Friends reached out with encouragement. But behind closed doors, she wrestled with her own fears. Her family watched quietly, offering support but never pressure. Her father, with his calm presence, reminded her gently, "Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about being yourself." Yet, beneath the surface, challenges brewed that no one expected. Just days before the event, an unforeseen problem threatened to derail everything. A sudden leak of personal information stirred controversy. Rumors began to spread, twisting facts into shadows. The press that once awaited her arrival with excitement now questioned her intentions. The weight of the name became a storm, threatening to break her spirit before she even stepped on stage. But in that darkest hour, a surprising ally appeared, someone from the tech world who had always admired her quietly from afar. With their support, she found the courage to face the storm head-on. The world would soon see not just Sundar Pichai's daughter, but a young woman forged from respect, humility, resilience, and kindness. As she prepared to take the stage, her heart pounded. The crowd's murmur echoed through the hall. And just when she thought she could no longer hold her fears at bay, she stepped forward, ready to stun the world in a way no one expected. But the story was far from over. Stepping into the light, the hall was packed, a sea of faces glowing softly under the warm lights, but for her the room felt vast and empty at once. As she stood backstage, the low murmur of the crowd seeped through the heavy curtains, each sound a reminder of the thousands who had gathered to watch, to judge, to hope. Her breath caught in her throat, every heartbeat echoing loudly in her chest as memories of all the quiet struggles flooded back. The nights spent questioning if she was enough, the moments when self-doubt whispered cruel words like a shadow in the dark. But now, the moment was here. She was no longer hiding. Her thoughts traveled back to her father, his steady voice, his calm presence that never faltered, even when faced with storms twice as fierce. She remembered the countless times he had told her stories of resilience, of how failures were not the end but the beginning of growth. How kindness could be a quiet rebellion in a world too often loud with anger. Those lessons had been seeds planted deep inside her, slowly growing into a strength she could now feel rising. The stage manager gave a subtle nod. It was time. She stepped forward, the spotlight warm against her skin. For a moment, the crowd blurred into a single wave of expectation and curiosity. But then, something shifted. She breathed deeply and spoke, not with rehearsed words, but from her heart. She spoke of her journey, not as a shadow cast by her father's success, but as a young woman finding her own path. She told stories of fear and hope, of quiet kindness in a world rushing toward power, of respect earned not through titles but through actions. The crowd listened, caught in the gentle force of her voice. There was no arrogance, no show of grandeur, only honesty and humility. She spoke about the pressure of carrying a famous name, the loneliness of high expectations, and the unexpected joy found in small acts of compassion. Her words painted a picture not just of struggle, but of resilience, the kind born from kindness and quiet strength. And then, just when the audience thought they had glimpsed her true self, the moment turned. A surprising twist unfolded as she revealed the challenges behind the scenes. The leak, the rumors, the fear that had threatened to silence her before she even began. She spoke openly about pain and doubt, about moments when giving up seemed easier than facing the storm. But most importantly, she shared how the kindness of unexpected allies had helped her stand tall. The room was silent, each listener touched by the rawness of her story. No longer just Sundar Pichai's daughter, she was now a symbol of resilience and hope, a reminder that beneath every name is a human being, shaped by love, struggle, and the courage to keep going. As her speech ended, the applause was not just polite, it was a wave of respect and connection that filled the room. But even as the crowd cheered, her heart held a quiet secret. A part of her knew this was only the beginning. The path ahead was uncertain, full of new challenges waiting to be faced. The spotlight had shifted, but with it came a new kind of pressure. She was stepping fully into the light now, and with that light came shadows she had yet to face. Backstage, as the applause faded, a message flashed on her phone. It was from an unknown number. The words were brief, but chilling. "The storm is just starting." The room around her seemed to close in, the weight of those few words heavier than any crowd's gaze. And in that moment, she understood that her story, her fight to be seen and heard, was far from over. The storm within, the world outside the conference hall, buzzed with excitement and chatter about her surprise appearance. But inside, she felt a different storm, brewing. A quiet, relentless battle far more intense than any crowd's gaze. The message had shattered the fragile peace she had built. Those words, "The storm is just starting," echoed in her mind like a warning, a shadow creeping over everything she had fought for. She sat alone in a dimly lit room, the hum of distant voices and fading applause barely reaching her ears. Her fingers trembled as she stared at her phone, the screen glowing with silence. Who had sent the message? What did they mean? 1,000 possibilities spiraled in her mind, each darker than the last. Yet, even in the face of uncertainty, she knew one thing clearly. She couldn't run from this. She had stepped into the light, and now she had to face whatever darkness waited. Her thoughts drifted to the leak, the personal information that had surfaced just days before her speech. At first, she had hoped it was a mistake, a cruel rumor that would fade like mist under the morning sun. But it had spread like wildfire, twisting truth into fiction. Suddenly, the world's gaze was not just curious but suspicious, sometimes even harsh. People questioned her motives, her character, and her right to speak. The pressure was suffocating. But the hardest battles were often the ones fought alone, in the quiet moments when the world wasn't watching. She remembered late nights when doubt whispered in her ear, when the weight of expectations pressed so heavily on her shoulders, she felt like collapsing. Those nights, her mind would wander to the life her father had lived, the sacrifices, the struggles hidden behind a calm smile. He had faced storms too, but he had taught her that resilience was not the absence of fear, but the courage to keep moving forward anyway. A sudden knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. It was a close friend from the tech community, a person who had quietly supported her from the shadows. Their presence was a balm, a reminder she was not alone. They spoke softly, sharing words of encouragement and reminding her of her strength. Sometimes the kindness of one person can light up the darkest room, and in that moment she felt a flicker of hope. But hope was fragile, and the storm outside the room was growing. The media frenzy intensified. Rumors became headlines. Social media buzzed with opinions, some supportive, many cruel. Yet, through the noise, she discovered something unexpected. Messages from strangers touched by her speech, emails from young people who saw themselves in her struggle, letters from parents who wanted their children to know that kindness and humility were powerful. These small threads of connection wove a tapestry of strength around her. It reminded her of a truth her father always lived by. Respect and kindness were not signs of weakness, but the foundation of true power. She began to see the storm not as a threat, but as a challenge to be met with grace and courage. And just when she thought she could begin to navigate the tempest, another surprise came. An invitation to a private meeting with a mysterious figure. From the tech world, someone whose influence could change everything. This meeting promised answers, but it also raised new questions. Trust was fragile, and in a world where power and kindness often clashed, she had to decide who to believe. As she prepared for this encounter, her heart was heavy but determined. The storm within mirrored the chaos outside. The path ahead was unclear, filled with shadows and light, danger and hope, and in that uncertainty she found her true strength. Not in escaping the storm, but in learning to dance in the rain. As the door closed behind her, the silence deepened, and the story took a turn no one saw coming. The future was still unwritten, but one thing was certain. She was no longer just a daughter in the background. She was becoming a force to be reckoned with. The crossroads of trust, the city skyline shimmered outside the tall glass windows of the office where she now sat, waiting. The room was sleek and modern, but to her it felt cold. An arena where power played its quiet, dangerous games. The invitation to meet this mysterious figure had come with no explanation, only a time and place. Curiosity warred with caution in her heart, each beat a question mark. She was stepping deeper into a world where trust was rare and every move held risk. As she waited, memories flooded back to her childhood, long evenings with her father, his voice steady and calm as he spoke of honesty, integrity, and the delicate balance between ambition and humility. Those lessons felt more important now than ever. In this moment, she wasn't just Sundar Pichai's daughter. She was a young woman standing at a crossroads, faced with decisions that could shape her future and test her values like never before. The door opened quietly, and a man stepped in. His presence was commanding but not threatening. There was something familiar in his eyes, a spark of kindness beneath the layers of experience. He spoke softly at first, sharing insights about the tech industry, its power struggles, and the cost of true leadership. He understood the weight of her name and the pressures it carried, but he also saw her for who she truly was, a person of resilience and grace. The conversation soon shifted to the leak and the rumors that had shaken her world. He revealed that these attacks were not random but part of a calculated effort to undermine not just her, but the values she stood for. A reminder that in a world driven by competition, kindness and humility could be seen as threats. It was a harsh truth, but one she needed to hear. Yet despite the warnings, he offered an unexpected choice, a chance to shape her own path, to use her voice and position to foster a new kind of leadership rooted in respect and empathy. It was an invitation not just to survive the storm, but to transform it into a force for good. The decision was hers, but the stakes were high. To accept meant stepping fully into the spotlight, embracing the responsibilities and risks that came with it. As the meeting ended, she felt a strange mix of hope and fear swirling within her. The road ahead was uncertain, lined with challenges she had only begun to understand. But she also felt a quiet fire ignite, a determination to lead not by the old rules of power, but through kindness and resilience. It was a vision her father had quietly lived, and now it was hers to carry forward. Outside, the world continued to watch and wait. Some cheered her rise, others whispered doubts. But in her heart, she knew that true leadership was not about perfection or titles. It was about staying true to one's values, even when the world seemed intent on breaking you down. As she stepped back into the daylight, the wind lifted her hair and carried away some of the heaviness. The storm was far from over, but she was ready to face it, with courage, humility, and a kindness that could change everything. And just when she thought she could finally breathe, her phone buzzed again. Another message, this time a simple line that made her heart stop. Are you ready to lead? The moment of truth, the day had arrived. The sky outside was a pale gray, the kind of quiet that seemed to hold its breath. Inside the conference hall, thousands of eyes waited, not just to witness a speech, but to witness a moment, a turning point. She sat quietly behind the curtains, heart pounding, every nerve alive with anticipation. Months of struggle, doubt, hope, and resilience had led to this very second. The world expected a performance, but she was ready to give them something far more real: herself. The memories of her journey flickered through her mind like a silent film. The quiet nights when tears were her only company, the unexpected friendships that rekindled her faith in humanity, the weight of her father's lessons echoing softly like a guidepost in the dark. She thought of the storms she had faced, the rumors, the harsh judgments, the cold messages meant to break her spirit, and she thought of the strength that had risen within her, born from kindness and humility, refusing to be crushed. As she stepped onto the stage, the spotlight warmed her face, but it was the sea of faces that truly held her attention. She saw more than strangers. She saw stories like hers, people carrying invisible burdens, fighting quiet battles, dreaming of a better tomorrow. Her voice, steady but gentle, began to fill the room. She spoke not of titles or power, but of connection, the human stories that bind us all. She shared lessons learned not just from success, but from failure and forgiveness. She spoke of respect as a currency more valuable than money, of resilience born in kindness, and of leadership that lifts others rather than stands above them. The crowd was silent, drawn in by the authenticity and courage of a young woman who dared to be vulnerable. On a world stage, she revealed how true strength lies in embracing one's fears and using them to fuel growth, how the greatest leaders listen more than they speak, and how humility can be the most radical act in a world obsessed with fame. And then, as the speech reached its crescendo, she paused and shared the final truth, that her journey was far from over. The storm still came, the shadows still lurked, but with each challenge, she grew stronger. Not because she was invincible, but because she chose kindness in the face of adversity, respect even when it was hard, and resilience when hope seemed distant. As she stepped back, the applause was thunderous, but her eyes searched the crowd for a quiet figure in the back, her father. His smile was gentle, filled with pride, not for the title she carried, but for the woman she had become. But just as the moment settled into something close to peace, her phone vibrated again. She glanced down, heart skipping a beat. A new message, this time from an unknown number, read simply, "The future is yours. Choose wisely." A hush fell over the crowd. The story was not over. In fact, it was just beginning. The daughter of Sundar Pichai had stunned the world, but her true journey, the journey to becoming a leader who would change everything with respect, humility, kindness, and resilience, was only starting to unfold. And in that moment, every eye watching knew this was not just a story about a name. It was a story about courage, about heart, and about the future. The weight of the crown, the world had shifted beneath her feet, but the real challenge was only beginning. The applause from that unforgettable speech still echoed in her ears, yet behind the scenes, the quiet pressure mounted like a slow tide, threatening to drown her resolve. The message she had received, "The future is yours, choose wisely," was no longer just a warning. It was a call to arms. Every decision she made now carried weight far beyond herself. The crown she was stepping toward felt heavy, not because of its shine, but because of what it represented: a future built on hope, kindness, and relentless courage. She found herself pulled in countless directions: media interviews, meetings with powerful figures, and the constant buzz of social media. Each interaction was a test, a subtle battle between staying true to her values and navigating the ruthless landscape of influence and expectation. Behind every smile was a question. Could she remain humble and kind in a world that often rewarded only the boldest and loudest? Could she lead with respect when many sought to tear her down? Her nights became a quiet war zone of reflection and doubt. She remembered the soft words of her father, how true leadership was less about control and more about service, less about commands and more about listening. But living those words amid fierce competition was harder than she had imagined. Old friends sometimes drifted away, uncertain if she was still the same person. New alliances formed, but trust was fragile, and every handshake felt weighed with unspoken agendas. And yet, through it all, small moments of kindness kept her grounded. A letter from a young student who saw her as a symbol of hope. A phone call from an unexpected mentor reminding her that vulnerability was not weakness. A quiet evening spent volunteering at a local charity, where the noise of the world faded into something pure and real. These were the sparks that rekindled her spirit. The reminders that beneath the crown she sought was a heart beating with genuine care. Then came a turning point, an invitation to speak at a global summit on technology and ethics. The event was a platform few could reach and the eyes of the world would be watching. It was a chance to not only share her vision, but to influence the future she dreamed of. But with it came a new storm, a campaign to discredit her character, rumors spreading like wildfire designed to shake her confidence and make her retreat into silence. Faced with this, she had a choice: succumb to fear or rise with even greater resolve. Drawing on every lesson learned, every challenge overcome, she chose to stand tall. In her speech, she spoke not just as Sundar Pichai's daughter, but as a leader in her own right, a voice for those often unheard, a champion for kindness in a cutthroat world, and a beacon of resilience born from humility. The summit erupted with applause, but more than that, she felt a profound shift inside, a sense that her journey was transforming from survival into true leadership. Yet, as she stepped off the stage, a quiet message awaited her again. This time, no words, just an image, an empty chair under a spotlight. A reminder that the path ahead would demand sacrifices she had not yet imagined. As the curtain fell on this chapter, one thing was clear. The crown she sought was not just a symbol of power, but a promise to lead with heart, even when the world demanded otherwise. And that promise would test everything she was and everything she could become. The silent sacrifice, the spotlight faded, but the weight of expectation did not. After the global summit, the world seemed to watch her every move, not just as Sundar Pichai's daughter, but as a symbol of a new kind of leadership, fragile, yet fiercely determined. The applause had been loud, the praise widespread, but beneath it all, a quiet, growing loneliness took hold. Leadership, she learned, was often a solitary path where sacrifice was the price paid for every step forward. Her days blurred into a whirlwind of meetings, strategy sessions, and public appearances. Yet the moments she treasured most were the rare quiet ones. Early mornings with a cup of tea, the soft pages of a book, the gentle smile of a close friend who reminded her of who she truly was beneath the public gaze. These small refuges were her anchors, moments where the noise could not reach her. But even in these private spaces, doubts crept in. The pressure to be perfect, to never falter, was a shadow that clung tightly. Mistakes were magnified in the harsh light of scrutiny. A single misstep could unravel months of progress. She remembered her father's words. Strength is not about never falling, but about rising every time you do. Still, rising again often meant leaving parts of herself behind. Quiet dreams sacrificed to the demands of the world. The message she had received at the summit, the image of the empty chair, became a haunting symbol. It was a reminder of absence, of those who could not walk this path with her. Family dinners missed, friendships strained, moments of joy deferred. She felt the growing distance from the simple life she once knew, replaced by the complex dance of influence and responsibility. Yet within this struggle, a new clarity emerged. Leadership was not about holding power alone, but about building spaces where others could shine. She began to invest in causes close to her heart: education for underprivileged children, mental health awareness, and fostering kindness in tech culture. These efforts grounded her, reminding her that the true crown was not a title but the impact she could make. Then came a letter, handwritten and unexpected, from a young girl in a small town far away. The words were simple but powerful. How this story of kindness and resilience had inspired her to dream bigger and be kinder in her own world. It was a moment of pure connection, a reminder that every sacrifice, every lonely night, carried meaning far beyond the spotlight. As she looked out from her office window at the city lights, she understood that this journey was not a sprint but a marathon. The road ahead was long, filled with uncertainty, but also with hope. The silent sacrifices, the quiet battles within, were the true test of her strength. And though the crown was heavy, she wore it with grace. Not because it was easy, but because she chose to lead with heart, even when no one was watching. The story was far from over. In the silent spaces between the noise, a new chapter was beginning. One written not just with ambition, but with compassion, courage, and unwavering resilience.